How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be making a card builder for UFC 317, aka International Fight Week. Now, this card has seemingly been cursed for the past 2 or so weeks, maybe a bit longer than that, actually. I'm going to rant a little bit before I get into the card builder because it does have rant in the title. As we all know, Dricus du Plessis, according to Kevin Iole, has suffered an injury, which is barring him from fighting Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 317. Now, to be fair, that was a matchup that was never actually made. It was always just kind of theorized or, inferred that that was when the fight was going to happen at UFC 317 International Fight Week. It made a lot of sense. But every other matchup has seemingly fell through as well. John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. According to Tom Aspinall, that fight is going to happen, but it won't happen at International Fight Week because John Jones has stated he wants 6 months of a training camp before he even fights anybody. So that means that fight would have had to have been signed in December if it were to actually happen on International Fight Week, which is, can't say that word. And the other fight that everyone wants to see at the moment is Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. Now, as you'll see later in this video, I may have one of those fellas in the main event. But Islam, according to many sources, according to himself and his team, does not want to fight Ilia Topuria. He does not want to fight him, and that pisses me off because you have only 2 title challengers that are rightful title challengers in that division, like literally Arman Tsarukyan and Ilia Topuria. Ilia, he's a featherweight moving up, and Islam has been bullied so much that he doesn't want to fight a featherweight anymore, which it's bullshit that I can kind of get where he's coming from. Like, I get it. People are going to shit on him either way if he wins or loses. It's a lose-lose situation for him. By most people. Most people are just going to be like, wow, you beat another featherweight again, dude. Fucking good shit, dude. And then try and bring down his legacy as if he hasn't, the featherweight he beat wasn't Alexander fucking Volkanovski. The second one was on short notice, but he was the number 1 fighter in the world at the time. And now Ilia Topuria, who's number 3 in the world, who is undefeated and has a crazy finishing rate. It's just, and then the other one, Arman Tsarukyan, is just like Dana is making an example out of him because he's fat. He was fat. He injured his back. You want to do a dance move with Nina Drama? Get smacked in the shadow room. You fight fucking, I don't know. They're probably gonna make Arman versus fucking Ilia, to be honest. I'm just very upset. So I thought I would make this video kind of give an idea of not what I want International Fight Week to be. There are some matchups that I think would really complement it very well, but also some matchups that I just do foresee the UFC making that could potentially make their way onto International Fight Week June 28th in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, UFC 317 brought to you by 28 Years Later, only in theaters June 20th. It was just a movie coming around at the time. I kind of try and guess. I got fucking Novocaine for 313, but Minecraft movie came out too early for UFC 314. I forget what the movie was even for that, but who gives a shit. First matchup is one that's already been made. Excuse me? Oh yeah, there we go. I had to click. Justin Tafa versus Janata Janiz at heavyweight. I don't really care about this matchup. I'll be blunt forward with you. Justin Tafa got TKO'd very brutally by Taliesin Teixeira in February, and Janata Janiz he got blobbed by Marcin Tybura. He is moving up. It will be a stand-up affair, so it'll probably lead to a finish by either or. Janata Janiz, maybe he gets knocked out by Justin Tafa, but I feel like this is kind of a tailor-made matchup for him, if I'm being totally honest with you. Justin Tafa is older and fat and shorter than Janata, and Janata's he was a decently big light heavyweight. He's going to be bigger than Justin Tafa, who is a natural heavyweight who just doesn't cut weight. And his chin seemingly has gotten worse over the years. It'll be a finish, but it'll be who cares kind of. It'll be cool, but it'll be wow, I don't really give a shit. Next matchup. That is not, by the way, I only have 2 official matchups on here. There are 2 other rumored fights that can potentially be happening on this card. I have no idea if they're actually official. One of them is Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov, which I said they should have made for 316. I didn't put that on here. And Daniel Zellhuber versus Michael Johnson. I didn't put that on here because those are not official fights. They very well could end up on this card, but they're not official. I didn't see Big Marcel post them. I don't trust anything unless it's that motherfucker or the UFC. Next prelim, we're going to raise the stakes infinitely more. Peyton Talbot's return versus Ramon Taveras. Now, a lot of people are putting Peyton Talbot on their custom UFC 317 cards. People are putting, I saw MMA Guru put him against Bernardo Sapai. Some other fighters there as well. I think Ramon Taveras is a perfect fighter to put him against. One, he's a striker first, so we're not going to have to worry about Peyton Talbot getting wrestle-fucked in this scenario. It's a very striker favor matchup for both. Ramon Taveras, very boxing heavy style, doesn't really switch it up besides like a low kick. Very, boxing stance. And he's also a lower enough level from a Raoni Barcelos that I think Peyton Talbot might be able to actually style on him a little bit, or just like Aura-mog him in a sense. Ramon, of course, fought Davey Grant last time. Didn't look too great. Had like some solid shots, but like got easily outstruck across 3 rounds. Besides maybe the first, maybe? I think he lost all 3 rounds, right? I think it was a very crisp performance from Davey Grant. I do believe that this is a matchup that is very tailor-made for Peyton Talbot, which is why I do believe this is a matchup the UFC would make. I think a Bernardo Sapai matchup would scare the UFC too much because Peyton Talbot is such a huge name, even though he's not that deep into his UFC career, of course. He only has 4 fights. But they're promoting him. They're uploading his fight with Yanis Gimori with like a poster in the lead up to 303. They really are pushing this guy. And even though he lost to Raoni Barcelos at 311, I think that a quick enough turnaround at 317 to kind of be like, I'm still here, instead of, wasting, 6-7 months sitting off. And it's not like this is a fight where improved ground game is going to really help you because it's a stand-up matchup. It'll kind of help build the confidence of Peyton Talbot. It'll get that confidence back in there from that Raoni Barcelos fight. And I do believe that this is a fight that would be entertaining just because it is a striker's first matchup. Next fight, we got some DEI in here. Tracy Cortez versus Casey O'Neill. I just looked at the WMMA rankings and was like, there. Tracy Cortez hasn't fought since July of last year. Casey O'Neill last fought, was it 305 when she fought Luana Santos? Was that her last fight? I don't know. I know she fought Luana Santos at 305. I don't know if she's fought since then. She might have. She might have done, but I don't care. It's just a ranked women's flyweight fight that could probably happen. Tracy Cortez is very inactive, but she's very attractive. Bars. So, yeah, like you can just throw that on there. Ranked WMMA. Next fight, I have another bantamweight clash for you guys. Cody Garbrandt versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'll be honest with you, I wanted to do a Vinicius Oliveira-Rob Font matchup because that's who Vinicius is calling for. Vinicius Oliveira has a weird media game plan where he keeps calling out people who are infinitely ranked higher than him, like Umar Nurmagomedov, even though he's only 3 fights deep into his career, hasn't fought a single ranked opponent yet. But he did make a call at a Rob Font recently that I actually did like, and the UFC could make that if they wanted to. If they wanted to just be like Vinicius, just throw him in there for some reason. I think you can take a step back, put Vinicius Oliveira in a scenario where he can fight on a big stage, i.e. International Fight Week. What you did with Peyton Talbot, for example, at 303 against Yanis Gimori, against a guy, who he can most likely get a highlight reel finish over, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen if this fight did get booked. Cody is still a big enough name with casual MMA fans. Best fighter for 25 minutes, bro. Bro, Cody Garbrandt, best fighter for 25 minutes, dude. Even though it was 48, 47. But people resonate with Cody because it's like, at this point, he was like Dude, Cody was the first Dominic Reyes. He was the first dude. He at least won the title. But Dominic, of course, fought John Jones. Very close fight. Probably should have won. Beats Dominic Cruz, does Cody Garbrandt, and then just loses enough where it was like, God, at least let's see Cody get a win. And then when he finally gets a win, we're like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And then he starts losing again. But it's like, fans love Cody Garbrandt because he's one of those kind of older generation fighters from when we were probably, if you were getting into the sport in the later 2010s, Cody Garbrandt was much of a villain at the tail end of that year, tail end of that decade, because he talked a lot of shit. And then the TJ Dillashaw thing, he was a super big villain going into that, or hero, depending on how you looked at the Team Alpha Male situation. And you were like, I want to see him shut up, TJ Dillashaw, because he's a snake. He's a snake. And how many times did I knock you down in training? None. Exactly. You got Cody Garbrandt in there. Oh boy. Don't show the next one. All right. All right. Feature prelim. Kind of spoiled the featured prelim. Sergey Pavlovich versus Jailton Almeida. But yeah, let me. Exactly. Let me, can I, dude, fuck, it's backward, okay. So, I want to finish talking about this matchup. It is just one of those matchups where I think a finish would be most likely to happen. Vinicius Oliveira, even though I love him, does have 3 losses by knockout. All 3 of his losses are by KO. He's a very kill-or-be-killed fighter, but he's also entertaining as shit, and he can push a pace on people, and I think this fight would just be very dynamic for them. Future prelim, of course, is spoiled for you guys. Sergey Pavlovich versus Jailton Almeida. Now, people will look at this and be like, how's feature prelim, brah? Sergey Pavlovich was feature fight. He co-main event and main event, dude. Sergey Pavlovich, dude, they hate Jailton Almeida. The UFC wants him to lose so bad. They've had him on prelims for his last 2 fights. Well, he was scheduled to be on the prelims against Sergey Spivak, not even the featured prelim at that. And then they moved him to the main card after Arman pulled out, and then they had to make Beneil got pulled from the card, and then there was an absent on the main card, so they just kind of threw him on there. I think this fight really does make a lot of sense. Anyways, very close rankings wise, 4 versus 6, I believe. Hold up. 4 versus 6. Sergey Pavlovich finally got back in the win column after losing 2 in a row to Volkov and Tom Aspinall. Jailton Almeida, suffered the loss to Curtis Blades. Kind of embarrassing, honestly. But then rallies back with an Alexander Romanov first-round finish and then a Sergey Spivak first-round finish. Hate him all you want. Jailton Almeida gets finishes most of the time. This fight would either be Pavlovich absolutely chinning Jailton Almeida or Jailton smudging Pavlovich and finishing him on the ground with ground and pound like Alistair Overeem did in his debut. So, probably a very fanfare matchup. Finish either way, or Jailton just kind of smudges him for 3 rounds. I think it'll most likely end in a finish either way. And that's the case with a lot of these fights besides probably Cortez O'Neal. I don't think that fight can probably end in a finish, but like every other fight on these prelims will most likely end in a finish. Maybe Talbot Tavares goes the distance because Tavares is kind of tough, but I have seen him get, KO'd before. So, yeah, he might get finished by Talbot. But anyways, let's move to the main card. Again, brought to you by 28 Years Later. That movie looks badass, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for it. It looks fucking really cool. I need to watch the first one, 28 Days Later, with Cillian Murphy. Never seen it. I'm a movie casual, guys. First fight on UFC 317, 5-fight main card, of course. Lightweight action with Mateusz Gamrot versus Renato Moicano. Now, originally I had this as the featured fight, or the featured prelim, rather, not featured fight, featured prelim, and Pavlovich Jailton on the main card, and then I was like, oh, they hate Almeida. Also, Moicano is too big of a star to not have him on a main card of a pay-per-view if you're going to throw him on a main card at all, anyways, on a pay-per-view at least. He's main eventing fight nights for the most part as of now. Him versus Gamrot does make sense. Listen, Moicano lost to fucking Islam Makhachev. I don't think he should have to fight coming off a, what was it? Was that a 4-fight win streak at that? or was it 3? It was either 4 or 3. I forget. It was Drew Dober, Benoit Saint-Denis, Jalen Turner. I don't know if Brad Riddell was in that win streak or not. I don't know if that was before the RDA fight at 272. But either way, Moicano was on a fucking streak. He's a huge star. Gamrot just said he has a fight booked, and people are claiming that it's gonna be what's his name? Klein, Ludovic Klein. If that's really the matchup, it's kind of a badass matchup and would also be kind of cool for this card. But I think Moicano deserves it a little bit more, unless you do him versus Beneil Dariush, which also does make sense for a pay-per-view card, just rebooking that fight. I think they're going to go a different area with Beneil Dariush for some reason. I don't know why. I think they're going to try and feed him to some young contenders for some reason, and it makes me sad, because I think Moicano is actually a very winnable matchup for Beneil Dariush. And honestly, this fight, kind of funky. Kind of a funky matchup. Very... Because Gamrot's too good of a grappler to get, like, absolutely outworked by Moicano. But Gamrot doesn't really have the stand-up ability. Moicano, to beat him, you kind of have to, like, mog him on the feet or do what Islam did and just, like, crunch him in a submission. Gamrot, I don't know if he could do either of those things. So it might just be, like, a weird stand-up battle where they're kind of just, like, going tit for tat, and I think Moicano would probably get the best of it. Even though Moicano's chin does suss me out, Gamrot's chin susses me out even about the same, to be honest. He's a very weird guy when he gets hit. He does, like, a cool little dance and then falls down. He's so good, and then he gets tagged flush one time and dies. Not dies, but he gets he has weird recovery, where he gets dropped really bad and then just gets back up very easily. It's weird. I think it'd be cool grappling if it does enter that exchange, because Gamrot has the best scramble ability in that division. I will stand by that. He has some of the nastiest scrambles. If you want to see some really slick grappling, watch him versus Arman Sarukian. It is one of my favorite grappling fights of all time. Just like MMA grappling at its finest, it's so fucking good. But Moicano, man, he's strong and big. Money Moicano, brother. So I think that this matchup is pretty viable. Also, Moicano didn't take a lot of damage against Islam. Just got subbed. And then Gamrot hasn't fought since 305. So I do believe he was super active before that. I think it is time to get Gamrot back in the mix. Let's move to the next main card fight. The other confirmed fight on this card. Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. I have this as the second fight on the main card. Again, I think it is a little distasteful to Brandon Royval to have to fight Manel Kape. Even though I get it, I get why they're making it, because flyweight's in such a weird space, because Pantoja's beat everybody. Like, it's disgusting how dominant he is against everybody besides Davis and Figueiredo, where he just, like, beats everybody. He just he just beats everybody, dude. You know, Royval 50-45'd him in December of 2023, and he beat Manel Kape by like 29-28, I believe, because I think Kape won at least one round. But I do like this matchup, honestly. I think the stand-up aspect of it's going to be really weird to deal with. Manel Kape has such a bladed stance and such a blitz-heavy attack where he just rushes in with one punch, and then he'll throw combinations to the body. Royval is going to be a bit bigger than him, though, and I don't know if Manel Kape is going to deal with the range as healthily as I'd like him to. It's one of those matchups where I just have to remember, dude, Royval is really fucking good, man. Like, he's actually really fucking good. You want out? Go. Get out! Get out of my room! That was my dog. My dog wants in my room and then just leaves. What a goofy goober. Anyways, I gotta remember, Royval is really fucking good, man. Like, he's really good. And, like, I can't, like, just, like, pick performance and be like, oh. Because this is a matchup where grappling isn't gonna really, like... Actually, no, Kape might shoot takedowns on him, to be fair. Because Kape does shoot takedowns, like, awkwardly enough, like, quite a bit on other people. Like, Pantoja, he shot, like, 8 for some reason. So maybe grappling might be a part of this fight if Kape wants to mix that in. Because that is obviously, on his back, Royval does give up very dominant positions in an attempt to scramble to his feet. He's one of these guys who, by any means necessary, I'm getting to my feet, whether it's giving up my back and then getting like just held down for the rest of the round, but I'm going to try my best to get back up in the quickest fashion possible instead of like methodically moving to transition. He just kind of rushes things. But I don't know if Kopp's like the guy to be able to get his back and then hold him. You know, I think he's like a guy that can dump him for a little bit. Royval gets back up, holding the clinch, separate, back to throwing 3 jabs every 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what this fight might just turn into. And on the feet, it's like the range to deal with. And Royval's so, like, he's long for the division. And he is good. And he could jump guillotines as well. He's got really nasty submission offense, does Brandon. And Kopp might be dumb enough to throw himself into one of those. But on the feet, it's going to be really weird to look at. I don't think this is going to be a Makayev matchup where Kopp is super tentative because he's not going to have takedowns shot on him necessarily. Because Royval's down to just slug. He's down to just like stay at range, jab, right hand, throw 300 strikes in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, he is down to do that. Because he can. He's got some of the best cardio in the division. And I don't know if Kopp could deal with that type of forward momentum. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how well he'd deal with that. So, we'll see what happens. I really like that matchup, though. Featured fight. Now, this is mostly to do with new knowledge I dropped. I think Arnold Allen has been injured recently. He won't be able to fight for a little bit, I believe is what he said. I think he injured his back or leg or something. There was a matchup I had previously with Aljamain Sterling. There's a new man on the block. Sterling versus John Silva. Listen, John Silva, at this point, you can't sugarcoat it anymore. There's not a way. He's 5 fights deep into his UFC career already. He debuted last year in January. But this guy's already top. He's number 11. He beat number 13 and got shot up to 11. That shows me they're going to book him against a fucking monster next. And even though Aljo isn't crazy high ranked, featherweight's in a weird spot where a lot of the middle 10 guys are like either too high up for a fight with John Silva. Like Diego Lopez, for example, I believe is too high up of a fighter for a Diego Lopez, for a John Silva fight. Same with Yair Rodriguez. Movsar Valoyev as well comes to, Jesus. Or like, and I don't want to see him fight Brian Ortega. Like, if he beats Brian Ortega, join the club, man. You did it. You did what everyone else has done in that top 5, essentially. Aljo, even though he's only 2 spots above and number 9, Aljo looks good at featherweight. He looked really solid against Movsar Evloev, had a very competitive fight. Enough competitiveness to where people were delusional enough to think that he won. And he looked strong grappling. He's a better grappler than Bryce Mitchell at 145. I will say that. So it's another instance where you're putting John Silva in a matchup against a primary grappler. Let's see what happens. I know John Silva just fought literally last or 2 weekends ago. He didn't take any damage. Let's be honest. He took a couple side kicks to the belly, leg kicks. That's about it. He's doing fine. Aljamain Sterling, it'll probably be on Aljo's own accord that this fight doesn't happen because after 292, he's very against taking fights on shorter notice and he wants to. But I think that this fight would be so fucking sick, man. Imagine the fucking hype build up into this. Dude, Sterling, just seeing what he's able to do to know Calvin Kattar, throw him on his head. Being able to grapple and scramble and even slam Movsar Evloev, I really find that fucking impressive because I have seen nobody else do that to Movsar in the grappling sense of things. And even on the striking, he did look somewhat decent in like round 1. John Silva has power in his hands. Sterling, of course, he has a history of 2 brutal KO losses to Sean. Not brutal with the Sean one, but it was the aftershots were pretty bad. And then Marlon Moraes with the knee up the middle. I think this fight is a perfect way to either build up John Silva even more, and you could even shoot him higher in the rankings. And I think this is a big legacy fight. for Aljamain Sterling if he were to win. Aljamain Sterling is awkwardly enough probably like a top 30 fighter of all time. Like, funny enough, he probably is with his resume. He's actually got some really solid wins on there. Imagine a John Silva win added on there. Like, imagine, dude. And I also think that this fight on the feet, like, Aljo's awkward, man. He's a very awkward, kind of long guy to deal with. Pause again. I think it'd be very fun. I think John Silva would struggle. I think it would be a matchup that he'd struggle with, and I want to see that. I didn't see that enough against Bryce Mitchell. I wanted to see him struggle against Bryce, because that would show me that, you know, I can actually compare him to this guy and see how he matches up. I didn't really see that, if I'm being honest. It looked like he was toying with him. He was messing around. This is a matchup I don't think he can mess around a lot, because Aljo's quick to the hips, and he's also very fucking strong. Because that's something I think Bryce lacked in that fight. Because Silva's very strong himself. Aljo's a fucking strong dude as well. He probably cuts the same amount of weight that John does. He's very muscly. I love this matchup. Let's move to the co-main event. Primarily the reason I have John Silva on here, of course, at the beginning of the video I mentioned DDP not being able to fight most likely at the June 28th date. Stepping in, most likely, is going to be Caio Borralho stepping in against Khamzat Chimaev, most likely for like an interim middleweight title. Now again, this is not what I want to see. This isn't like some of these are. The Sterling Silva matchup is a matchup I want to see, but that's also a matchup I do think the UFC is going to make. I want to see Chimaev versus Imavov. I want to see that fight. Because I really, if I'm being totally honest with you, I think Imavov and Chimaev is actually a very awkward fight enough to where Imavov might be able to last on the ground. I honestly think Caio Borralho gets subbed in the first round in this one. I'm going to be honest with you. Seeing and remembering some fights, like the Petrosian fight was kind of awkward for Caio. The Muradov fight at UFC 280, funny enough, from what I remember, wasn't really the greatest performance. The Abbas Magomedov fight also, round 1 and quite a bit of round 2 was actually kind of weirdly competitive. And I'm not a huge fan of Caio taking this fight. If this is the fight that gets made for an interim title at the middleweight division, I think Khamzat Chimaev would win this quite easily, if I'm being honest. Caio, in my opinion, has probably the least aura out of all the fighting nerds, mostly because he doesn't get a lot of finishes, but also it's just he doesn't have like the crazy flash as well. But he is also at a point in his career where we've seen him fight tougher guys and tougher guys. I don't know. I think this is a bad matchup stylistically for him. And we've seen grappling matches, like sparring grapple sessions with these guys, and Khamzat's picking him up and dumping him on his knees. Doesn't look all that great, if I'm being honest with you. If this is the matchup that gets made, I'm not mad at it. I'm not like mad at it, but I'm like, you could make a Chimaev versus Imavov matchup. My only concern with that is that Imavov wouldn't take the fight, because I think Imavov in his mind is in, and honestly you could do Imavov Borralho for an interim title shot. Maybe you promise them the title shot after Chimaev gets it, because we don't know how severe the injury with DDP is. We don't know if it's like a fractured foot or a broken hand or like he fucked up his shoulder or something. We don't know if it was like Yuri Prohaska, Jamal Hill type shit, or if it was just like he broke his foot, he won't be able to make the date like healthy enough to where he's confident going into a Khamzat Chimaev fight. Because at the end of the day, that is why he's pulling out, because he's not confident enough that his skills will be 100%, which he needs going into a Chimaev fight, which I respect wholeheartedly. I think people dogging on DDP are fucking pussies. Because people are always going to bring up the 293 fiasco where they tried to force DDP to fight fucking 10 or 8 weeks later after fighting Robert fucking Whitaker, which is fucking crazy, by the way. When he went into that fight with a broken foot and was like, probably never going to do that again. And he can't do that against Khamzat Chimaev. So, we'll see. I think Khamzat wins this fight pretty easily. I'll be sadly honest with you. But I do think it'd be a fun fight for as long as it lasts. Seeing if Caio would be the type of guy to outlast Chimaev. I don't think he would, to be honest. I think he's too blocky and not flexible enough on the ground. But who knows? Maybe maybe he is the guy to do it. Let's move to the main event. I mentioned earlier that I probably have Islam or Ilya in my main event. This is not the fight I want. And Bedtime MMA is a bitch for speaking it into reality. I think they're dead ass going to give the title shot to Justin Gaethje, and it makes me so fucking mad. I genuinely believe that this is going to be the main event of UFC 317. It's either the Chimaev versus Bohalyo, which I don't want to see as a main event for an international fight week. It'll be one of the weakest international fight week main events probably since Adesanya Cannonier, honestly, which was an awkward one. What were the last couple? Volk versus Yair, and then Pereira Proska 2. What was the one from 276? So 27257. So 264, which was Conor, Dustin Poirier. Was that International Fight Week? That was International Fight Week, because Sean O'Malley was on there against, what's his face? Was that when he fought the green-haired Chris Moutinho? This will probably be one of the weakest main events for an International Fight Week in a while, but I think it will be entertaining. But it's one of those fights where you already know the outcome. I think Islam subs Justin Gaethje in round 1 or 2. Seeing him get put in the ass-eater position by Rafael Fiziev is not my favorite thing going into a fight with Islam Makhachev. And also I think on the feet, Islam's better at MMA striking, in my opinion. I think he mixes it up better as well. This is one of those weird videos where I don't talk much about the main and co-main event ideas because I don't think they're going to be all that competitive. I think Makhachev beats Gaethje pretty easily. I think on the feet, Gaethje's going to throw his Rufus 1-2s, overhand right, quite a bit. Besides that, what does he have to offer? His wrestling, his D1 wrestling, he's going to get fucking crushed into the canvas. Chimaev versus Bohalyo, I think Khamzat touches Bohalyo where the sun doesn't shine. Sadly enough, I think that's what would most likely happen. So, yeah, UFC 317 International Fight Week. Listen, this is a realistic card builder, alright? Listen, I'm not here to build fantasy matchups, even though, and which I do think it is kind of crazy that I have to preface realistic, because the UFC has diluted the source material down so much that a card like this is probably the most realistic thing we can get. Sadly enough, this is the most, I would love to have a Rufi versus Beneil Dariush matchup on here. I'd love to have a fucking Prohaska Olberg matchup on here. I'd love to have fucking 3 title fights. I'd love to see Makhachev versus Ilya, Chimaev versus Bohalyo, and then a WM like Zhang versus Verna Jandiroba. I'd love to see some shit like that. But alas, we're in 2025. So we're probably not even going to get 2 of these matchups. We're probably going to see an unranked fighter fight on the main card of International Fight Week. Funny enough. It could be Rufi against Dariush, but I don't know. But yeah, that's my UFC 317 card builder. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content, holy shit. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe, leave a comment down below. What are some fights that you would like to see on International Fight Week? But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.